How is there that many people in here already? After the David Worden update with Jack Miller had a lot to say. You guys hear me okay? And I got a message the very next day or the same day saying that Phillipe wanted to come on and say what he wanted to say about the David Worden thing. Live YouTube stream. And a lot of people in here. Hit the thumbs up, man. I'm trying to get people to call me one way or another. Drop links or screenshots of the docs. Get on there, Phillipe. Let Phillipe link whatever he wants, document whatever he wants to talk about. He's calling me now. Hit the thumbs up, Phillipe Hemming, David Worden update. I haven't heard Phillipe in a long time, man. All right, he says he's calling. I don't hear any ringing. Let's check out Alley Cat's Snapchat story real quick.
Hey, John, you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud. Is it clear? Is it clear? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Does that
Can everybody hear him? I can hear you. They can.
All right, no problem. And you're doing it, and you're live as well. Okay. I don't really care what anybody has to say on chat or anything like that. But good afternoon, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, so
I could just get to speak up just a smidge, and we'll be straight, I think.
What do you need me to do?
Speak up a little bit.
All right, no problem. So, where would you like to start?
Dave.
But if you like, I can give you a brief history about this individual, about who was introduced as a First Amendment activist into the program, if you like. I had been targeted by his minions and the like, and it's really shut down a lot of things I was doing, simply just trying to focus on making sure that his story got out, this guy's story, and that any other activities this guy's related were shut down. He became my man because of the stories that he told, the lies that he told, that I was going to do. I would change my focus actively to just talking about him versus anything else. Meanwhile, still working behind the scenes, documenting the world of police accountability and what do you call extrajudicial summary execution by police officers against citizens of our country. I've never stopped being a police accountability activist and activist in the community.
Phillipe.
Not in public. Yes.
Let me go inside my house, man, because they're saying it's buffering really bad.
Right, no problem.
Sorry. I'm very sorry.
No worries. I'm going to provide a complete synopsis of how Earl David Worden injected himself into this community and poisoned this community for the last 4 years. That's what I quote. So we had a cancer diagnosis, and instead of continuing to try to propagate, I just focused on taking care of the cancer.
You had cancer?
No, Earl David Worden was a cancer to our community.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, he was a cancer. And I knew about this cancer before he was ever charged, and I'll get to that as well.
All right. I think we're good now. Everybody can hear him. I can hear him good. I'm right next to the router. Yes, everyone's saying much better. I guess I got to do it from here. Okay.
All right, no worries.
So, Phillipe, you're saying you have been focusing on David Worden to show what a fraud and a cancer he is to the auditing movement. Is that right?
Well, absolutely, because he was out carrying himself as we used to call him, like Ned Flanders, because he was always the nice guy when he interacted with law enforcement. He was never. That's what we would, when he was with Photography Tonight Crime with PNAC. That's what we would call him, because he would never give law enforcement officers a hard time. It was an odd situation that this guy was, having these interactions with officers, and then to try to put on different acts, like trying to act like he spoke German and telling stories about it being in law enforcement. But let me give you the how we got introduced to him. Okay. Back in November of 2015, Earl David Worden had made contact with Phillipe Turner, the Potosi, who was a young black man who in South Texas who was videotaping the police, and his specialty was what they call the silent treatment. He would not talk to the cops. When the cops came up on scene, he wouldn't do anything else. So what had happened, Earl David Worden had volunteered his services, because he didn't have time, because the guy wasn't working, to be Turner's backup camera guy. And for the longest, we didn't know who he was. Phillipe did not disclose who he was, wouldn't tell us who he was, and we had discovered who David was until he was arrested about 10 days later. He was arrested outside a Shell in Deer Park.
What year is this?
2015.
Okay.
So a very short period of time from his injection into the community through Phillipe Turner, he was arrested the first time outside a Shell for interfering in law enforcement activities, and that's one of his original videos. So as the investigative researcher and kind of liaison for Photography Tonight Crime, I was asked, hey, find out where this guy's at, because apparently he was live streamed or something was happening. It was 2015, might as well have been 1963 as when it comes to the time distance and the technology difference between what we have now and what we have then. So I don't think he was live streaming. I think live streaming was even available in 2015, not on a capacity from a cell phone. But so somehow, some way, I found out that Earl David Worden with an A, because that's what he told us his name was, David Worden, as in prison warden, was in custody in Harris County Jail. So I get on the phone with Harris County Jail and try and track this guy down, figure out what's going on, and see what the nature of the charges. So if the guy had a bond, and try to get some working done so we get this guy out of custody. Because as far as we knew, he was a nonviolent offender. We had no history on the guy, and doing what we're doing. As I'm talking to law enforcement officers on the phone, they tell me, Phillipe, we don't have anybody in here by that last name, but we do have a guy in custody with the name of Worden, W-O-R-D-E-N. And he doesn't, based on his criminal record, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy you'd want to associate with. Like, what are you talking about? So that didn't matter. Well, that was going on. I got Phillipe Turner on the phone and said, hey, Phil, I need you to go down to Deer Park and go outside this facility and start filming and see what happens. I was on the phone at the same time with the district attorney's public information officer when Phillipe Turner is being arrested for then trespassing on Shell property, which wasn't true. They hid him out in custody for 7 days in the Harris County Jail, Phillipe Turner. Meanwhile, Earl was popped loose because he had already been through the process, paid his $500 bond, and was walking out the door. Meanwhile, Phillipe Turner was disappeared within the system, because that's what happens when you get a true activist into the system and they start trying to hide you. So that from that point forward, we became interested in who and why Earl would be trying to hide his name from being Worden to Worden. It sounds the same, spelled different, and even he put out there, it's spelled like prison warden, and there's video of him saying that, prison warden. So he initially tried to hide his identity, and very soon after that, Earl David Worden was contacted by Galveston County Sheriff's Office and told, hey, listen, we found out you're a registered sex offender and you need to update your registry. So that's when Earl's world kind of went sideways, because now he was then exposed for the crime that he committed back in 1985, I believe the date is, and I have it on record, where he was arrested for raping a woman at gunpoint while pretending to be a police officer. He pulled over a woman while he was working for his father's security company, Worden Security, in a car that might have been a Harris County, or not Harris County, a Houston Police Department car that was on a car lot that he was working security on. Pulled a woman over, raped her at gunpoint, and zip tied her. And then after doing that, he then continued to harass her and threaten her, to not disclose what had happened. Well, he was convicted of that, and he was sentenced to prison. But at that point in time, Texas had a different mindset when it came to violent sexual offenders like that, and he gave them the super secret squirrel type of situation where that he didn't receive what in other places would have been a much harder sentence, likely even life in prison during that period of time, 1985. They were still executing people in the South for rape. In this case, was he raped a woman at gunpoint, used a weapon as a penetration device, and zip tied this woman to the car, stole her purse and stuff like that. This is a really nasty fellow. And so after that, he did his time. He has a fixation with firearms.
How much time did he do for that?
One more time?
How much time did he do for that?
I think initially did 8 years for that. I'd have to look at the calendar. Right. 8 to 10 years.
All right.
He did some time for that, but not not in comparison to what we would remember of rapists being charged with in the 70s and the 80s. Initially, in other parts of the South, they don't never seen the outside of the day. In the many cases in the South, I think they had a death sentence for rapists.
You think he got a light sentence on purpose?
Oh, yeah, I think he got a light sentence because his daddy had some money at the time, and he had himself a decent attorney, and he's a white boy in Texas.
Okay.
And that's the absolute positive truth. There's two different justice systems in the South. There's one for white people and there's one for everybody else.
All right.
And in this situation, Earl David Worden's father was a reasonably successful man post-World War II, had a family, but he had two scumbag kids. He had at least two scumbag kids. He had Earl and his dead brother, Dwayne. And that's later on, and we'll talk about that after. I'll tell you about that character too. So we start finding out in 2015, 2016, 2017, the world of the Megan's List digital presence was very, very minimal. And the Texas Department of Public Safety, TPS, did not have a web page where we could actively look this. But meanwhile, I'm talking to detectives, I'm talking to other people because I'm building story information. Because when I worked at PNAC, I tried to provide as much data as possible so the writers could then write a true and accurate story versus just speculation and opinion. If you want true journalism is not what the reporter or journalist believes, it is what they can prove and what they can show in the facts they gathered from first-person testimony, documents created, video, whatever. Much better than what I believe type stuff. And that's the type of principles that we tended to have within that organization was, hey, you have two choices. You have corporate media who's carrying the water for their advertisers, selling the beautiful story the cops are pushing. You have the cop story, which is nearly 100% a lie 100% of the time. And then you have the maybe little point of view from the person just getting their ass beat and arrested by the police. And typically the presence of video at that point in time in 2015 was very non-existent. It was poor quality on a cell phone, if your cell phone even had a camera on it, and then going further on than where we have today. And we've seen that progression through, one of the best live stream videos as far as documenting police brutality was unfortunately the murder of Philando Castile. And then going forward to Alton Sterling and stuff like that, to where we had third-person video live streaming their interaction with law enforcement. They were non-activists, but were just general citizens. But then the whole activism training started picking up as soon as we really started to organize. But back to Earl, not to digress. But so this guy comes on the scene. We come to find out that he's a registered sex offender. We're trying to get the version of events. Hey, so what are you trying to tell us? What's this sexual offense? And he told many people many different stories. One story he told me was what they call post-coitus regret. That's the kind of legal term to describe it. You have consensual sex with another person, and after they have the consensual sex, they decide later on that it was a bad idea. And so as a result, she filed a criminal complaint. But knowing the status of the court, they're not going to file that kind of nonsense on you. Simply doesn't add up. Then he told other people that I was messing with this girl. Her parents found out. No, that's not how it works, David. And so as it's going on, we're trying to figure out, this guy's putting out content. We really don't know the whole story, but eventually we did. It was 2 years. I think it was 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, that he was contacted by the Deer Park Police Department. Earl David Ward was contacted by the Deer Park Police Department and asked to come in to give an interview. But between the time of that interview and before, we had identified Tim Hill as the director of security for Shell, as well as the president of the Transportation Safety Corridor organization. In this area of the country, there are more petroleum refineries and chemical generation plants than any other place on Earth. And as a result, it's a potential a potential threat. At least that's what the Department of Homeland Security and others say. Hey, if someone wanted to do something severely catastrophic and kind of a great effect on a great area, that would be that area. Because Houston's not a small community; it's one of the largest cities in the United States, and has a great potential population. And oil's a big deal in Texas. So Earl decided that he was going to use his minions or his simps to gather intel on Mr. Hill, so much so that he had went out and made a video, and it's still up, I believe, where he was in his truck, and he said, "Hey, I know where this guy lives. I know where his wife goes to. I know where his kids go to church," and it made a passive threat about that he was going to do something to this guy. As a result of that video, Mr. Hill contacted the Deer Park Police Department, because that's the point of contact, and that he knows them well, I imagine. And then then the Deer Park Police went out and had a conversation with some people trying to figure out whether or not Earl was an actual threat. But instead of saying, no, he's not, he's a cool character, yeah, no, he's a great guy, it was, no, he molested me and he molested my sisters, and from his wife said, yes, he molested all my kids. That's what's contained in the Deer Park video interview that you can find. And and most people who are interested in our conversation will know exactly where find that video. I'll make the link ready and available. Earl, after he gave it to me, then copyright. So I have a pre-copyrighted, pre-release version that was released to me that I believe that I can share without fear of copyright infringement, because this is a public value, and this person is newsworthy, and we can work around the copyright stuff from prison if he wants to sue me. But from that interview, I discovered the allegations that were being made against him by the state of Texas, and knowing the stories that he was telling these law enforcement officers, Detective Reed and his partner, that he was a Nazi hunter, and that he had worked for federal law enforcement, and that he had an active NDA and top secret squirrel stuff that he can't talk about. But and they let him go on, but he's then showing all the characteristics while he's talking to these gentlemen of being extremely nervous and other signs of deception. But then the detectives turned tables on them and started giving them the narrative. So, hey, Earl, let you know how we found about you, and it's got nothing to do with your activism. It has nothing to do. I have no idea. Detective told me, I have no idea who you are. I don't care. I mean, I have no idea who you are. This guy thought it was very. He thinks very highly of himself, and he thinks he's a greater target than he is. Most people have no fucking idea. Have no idea who he is, nor do they care. And most people in law enforcement didn't. But if you watch that interview, and that interview will show you this interaction, and it adds, now that he's now convicted of the allegation, it gives more validity to what these individuals are saying. And so from there, I sat on that. He sent me the video immediately after. Earl David Worden sent me the video immediately after the interview. He sent it to me via Google Drive or something like that.
And the interview was with the police?
Yeah, he had recorded the interview with the police on his cell phone or on his camera, and somehow he sent me the file. I'm not even quite sure how I got the video file.
So
I don't know. Was
this guy you're talking about is the head of the Shell refinery. Why does David have a problem with him?
Because I don't know really why. Because I think that he believes the guy is somehow weak at his job or whatever. I really never asked Earl what beef he had with Tim Hill or why he believed that he had beef with Tim Hill. But because of Earl's beef with Tim Hill, he got the law enforcement officer's attention, and then his kids were interviewed and his ex-wife were interviewed, and they found out he was a child molester.
Oh, so he was going after the head of Shell refinery?
Yep. Shell refinery security. Tim Hill was their director of security. See, and I had
what year was that? What year?
That's 2015. Well, he started his campaign in 2015 about finding out who it was, and I found out who the guy was because I talked to Tim Hill before, because every time some person would go out there and film, they would have a derogatory encounter with the people that they're paid to do that, and I was trying to mitigate the situation and say, hey man, if you have nothing to worry about from these people. They're not terrorists or anything like that. Just simply let them film and go about your business. Otherwise, you're going to create fodder and create content. So if you're trying to avoid content and avoid fodder, just let these people film, and it's not a big deal. But these people had some difficulty understanding individual rights and the right to document and all this other stuff. And so they get this badge flex, and they think, whatever they're thinking, they say basically, screw your rights, I'm going to step on your neck. That's the way I look at it.
So he calls Deer Park Police. Deer Park Police. This is when you discover David has a history of sexual assault.
The complete file was created after that. We found out after that interview with the Deer Park Police Department that he shared with me the guy's complete history because he discussed it. Earl discussed it on that video about the charge and about this other stuff. And the video that is out there is very eye-opening because most of the content's being created by Earl in his own expression. The two detectives barely talk in the conversation. It's Earl just simply vomiting on the table everything that he could possibly say to try to either pump himself up or exonerate himself for what was going on. And he just did not have enough sense to walk out of the room. I knew that he was going to that place, and I told him, "Hey, don't go to that place without an attorney, because they're not going to call. They're not talking to you because they want the swamp recipes. They're interested in you for some reason. And if you can avoid talking to the police without a representation with you, you do so." And he wasn't under arrest, so he went into this interview freely, without being Mirandized, with under suspicion to say. It was like hey, meet and greet, what's going on? But Earl, thinking that this is a predator, thinking that he's smarter than everybody else in the room, more knowledgeable than everybody else in the room, that he's gonna fool these police officers. He's gonna talk his way out of what he did to his children. And it's no longer speculation of what he did. No, a jury as well as many other people believe that every single word that his daughter said. There's other people that even believe that him and his brother are associated with some disappearances and murders in South Texas. When this case popped, when I started hearing about this, I made contact with other people, and other people started looking into Earl. Texas Public Radio started looking into Earl, started contacting law enforcement officers that had previously investigated because we believed that this guy fell through the cracks. For some odd reason. There's even posts on the Texas Public Safety's disappearance page about stories where Earl fits the description of the individual in a green pickup truck rolling up to 12-year-old girls at a bus stop and trying to snatch them. And so that's the thing that's going on is this guy, who prior to his arrest, had movement all throughout the United States, and had traveled throughout the United States. And then we got his military history. Yeah, he served in the military, and yeah, he was a military policeman. But his military police career was very short. Somehow, someway, he went from guarding the motor pool as a military policeman to being a clerk. That's a big situation where the military doesn't spend a bunch of money to teach you to be a law enforcement officer, and then all of a sudden make you a clerk. You had to screw it up. Now, getting those records are nearly impossible. I've tried. As close as we can get is his DD Form 214, which is a military form that documents your time in service in different places you served, including some of the positions you held. And that's what we found out on that. Because as soon as this all started happening, we wanted to make sure that we knew absolutely, positively everything we could possibly know about this guy, so that in the event that something comes up, that we know. So we don't want.
Let me ask you some questions, man. This latest trial, what do you think was the determining factor for his guilt?
The evidence presented by his children.
And so the evidence is their testimony, is that right?
First person testimony. Yeah, first person testimony, and they had third person testimony from their from medical witnesses as well as CPS reports and stuff like that. So this wasn't.
So hold on, let me ask a few questions, Phillipe. Let me ask a few questions. The first time he got convicted for what you were saying, you pretending to be a cop and stopping the girl, right. And what evidence was that? Was that again first person hearsay? And
yep, absolutely. First person.
And the only other arrest other than that was over a firearm or something. Is that right?
Felon in possession of a firearm. He claimed that he had stopped a rape at a bar, and if not for his firearm, that that guy's fixated about. That he would, and that's one of the witnesses that was scheduled to be brought forward was for some odd reason they were going to use the guy that he saved as maybe a character witness. I have no idea, but the guy, somebody was in the process of being raped, and he pulled a gun on him and stopped it. He thought that that's one of the things he talks about in that Deer Park interview. You hear it in blurbs. What about this guy? It's a defensive reaction because his character was being brought into question.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So as we're going through this whole process with after this Deer Park interview, it took the state of Texas almost 2 years to finally bring his charges before a grand jury, and then he was indicted. It was not the sole decision, as Earl describes, of the DA of Harris County. It wasn't. The DA of Harris County took the evidence to a grand jury. The grand jury decided there was enough evidence to indict, and this went on until last week to where he was convicted by a jury of conspiracy.
And Dave is saying what, that it's a conspiracy between the head of security.
Yeah, he tried to claim that he somehow called out what happened to the Tuttles who were murdered by the Houston Police Department's Drug Task Force weeks before he was arrested, and he tried to say that this was retaliation for his activism. That was never brought up in trial by anybody. Nothing about he was trying to sell that first it was retaliation for the murder of the Tuttles and his work as an investigative journalist. Complete lie. That was thrown out. It was from the world of public opinion. People were telling him to go, kick rocks, kid. You're full of shit. And so next thing he was trying to say as well, for years, was that Shell had paid the Deer Park detectives, and he was going to show evidence that the Deer Park Shell refinery had paid these officers and had emails where they showed that he was being targeted for what? No, Earl, this is what happened. You made a video stalking the children of this man, and the man called the police. The police then went checking your character to see if you were a threat or not, and while doing that, they made contact with your victims. That had somehow their case had fallen through the cracks because of maybe a jurisdictional issue, because it was the place that he was keeping his children at, the shithole that he was keeping his children at, was like on the border of Harris County and the city of Houston, or two cities, and again, they don't. The cops don't care about poor white trash versus persons of color, and unfortunately, Earl's children were poor white trash. So much so that when CPS came to his place after his issues, they took his kids. They took his kids away from him, and they were all given to members of the church because of the squalor and conditions that he was keeping his children in. And so, this is a guy who tries to act like, he's all well and good and, Captain Dandy Doolittle, but really and truly he's an evil piece of shit. And it was putting himself out as this really, really nice guy when no, absolutely not. He's a predator that stalked and conspired and did other things. And we'll continue to do that. And we'll try, and I believe he believes his own lies. And so he's like, the man's got issues with reality, but he's going to have 20 years to figure that out. And so
did he get 20 years?
Got 20 years, yeah, and with no possibility of parole. And for those who think that he's going to get out, currently there's a rumor being propagated by him through Patrick Roth that he's going to get an appellate bond. Well, I suggest they read the Texas Code of Criminal Procedures. Individuals sentenced to greater than 10 years are not eligible for an appellate bond. And there's a whole criteria of different types of charges that you've been convicted of that you're not going to get an appellate bond. You can get an appeal, but they're not going to let a convicted violent rapist and now convicted child molester to walk loose in the state of Texas on bond or on anything. Yeah, they let him loose for pending trial. Okay, he did have a pretty large bond initially, and they did reduce it down, but he got what he asked for. My understanding, they approached him on several occasions and said, hey, we can offer you a deal. You have to plead to it. I think the lowest deal they offered was 10 years. And he said no. Stupidly said no, knowing that he did it. I guess, I don't know. I've never talked to him about it since.
Let me say, he called me the day before the trial, and of course he was saying, that he didn't do it. I mean, he's never going to, again, to absolutely find the truth is nearly impossible, but bottom line is his first and second charges and convictions for sexual assault and rape, you believe, are 100% factual. He deserves what he got and more. Is that where we're getting at with David?
Absolutely. I believe, my own personal beliefs regarding rapists is you cross the line, violent criminals cross the line, and they prove to the society that they cannot be trusted, and nor should they be trusted. Unless there's some underlying mitigating circumstance, substance abuse, mental illness, and those are typically associated in the criminal justice process prior to a conviction. Those are argued, those are presented before a jury, and at no point in time did I ever see anything presented by anyone on Earl's behalf suggesting that a man is mentally ill or is incompetent. I know him to be completely different. I know him to be competent. His only mental illness is narcissism and delusions of grandeur, and being a pathological liar. But he, if that makes you mentally ill, then there's a large members of our society that are the same. that believe fantasies and all kinds of other stuff. But in this case, he acted out. He took a position, he used force to rape a woman at gunpoint, and then he used force to molest his children. And very horrible things that, if ever become available, the transcript, which I don't ever think will ever become available, will be actually describe it. And that's why I believe, and others believe, that he took the 20-year sentence as a deal, because he was then, if he had not taken the deal, because that's what it was, he was found guilty, and then rescinded his desire to have the jury decide his fate, because what was going to happen during sentencing was every one of his victims was going to get to testify, and his criminal history would then be presented. And a jury who had just convicted him unanimously, because that's how it happens in criminal court, imagine what they would have done to him. 20 years, yeah, 20 years is 20 years, but they could have given him 99 years. So he took a deal to do the 20.
Okay.
He took the 20 with no possibility of parole. Mm-hmm. And he's going to do every single day.
Well, 20 or 90 at this point, he's what, 60-some years old?
62.
Yeah, 62. So he's probably going to die in prison, unfortunately.
That's what I told.
Or fortunately, however you look at it.
That's what I told him. Hey, fuck him. I don't care. You molest little kids and you rape people at gunpoint, you lose like human.
If that's factual, I'm 100% with you, but you know what I mean.
No, it is. We're beyond that. We either trust we trust the verdict or we don't. Right. I don't think he was a big enough threat to law enforcement that they would go after him. He at one point in time compared himself to Dr. King. Can you imagine this fucking child molester compared himself to Dr. Martin Luther King, who was arrested 31 times for totally fictitious crimes, and who was then assassinated by our government because he was too powerful and too influential? He compared himself to Malcolm X, who was murdered by his own people at the influence of the FBI. These are all documented things. These are not things I'm pulling out of my ass or air. These are documented, factual things that these people, because they were outspoken against oppression and spoke to power, were then murdered by our government. These are not mysteries. These are facts. And so this asshole tried to compare himself to people who truly were out there on the line. And then he was like a lamprey or a remora, latching on to some other violent creature and just eating the shit that this animal was throwing off. And that's what this guy survived on. He created his persona that people gobbled on up, and still today, still today, believe that Earl David Worden was somehow maligned by law enforcement in this. It was a phony crime. I promise you, it's not the case. All you have to do is do a little digging and then trust the documents that are presented. But some people can't do that because they want to believe, and you're never going to overcome that, because that's just the way it here is in the United States. We don't teach our children about logic and reasoning and critical thought, so they can't tell the difference between facts and beliefs. You can believe whatever you like,
sure, but
facts are going to be completely different. The facts are the facts. The man is a convicted violent rapist and now a convicted child molester, and he's a liar. Time and time again, and as a result of me coming out immediately after him being arrested, he began to target me. He made videos about me. He attacked my wife, filed bar complaints, did all kinds of other things to try to stop me or slow me down. It didn't stop me nor slow me down. I just made my target a lot smaller.
Let me jump in here, because you're a pretty polarizing figure yourself, and a lot of people in the comments are asking questions about. Turn the stupid speaker off.
I don't even look at it.
What makes you so? Why are you so polarizing? Why do you get so much hate?
I speak the truth.
Okay, about who though? What you're telling me right now about David Worden sounds believable, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible. And
I understand. I understand completely. And I hope that you would. And I wasn't going to come back and be anything but presenting the facts. And all these people that have some antagonism towards me or have some cognitive dissonance as a result of being presented the facts. Earl claimed I did this. Earl claimed I did that. The State Bar of California told me to kick fucking rocks. If you had some criminal prosecution against me, nobody wanted to prosecute me. I have no issues with what's going on.
So you think the hate's coming from your work against David Worden?
Yep, pretty much. That's what it is. Absolutely.
Do you associate with any auditors right now?
Or speaking truth, or better yet, telling those that go out and commit crimes while claiming to be activists. And I've always said this when I had my own live stream and it was on a nightly deal. with people coming to listen to what was going on as I presented the stories of the day. I told people the difference between an activist and a terrorism is criminality. If you go out and commit a crime while you're so-called being an activist, you're not an activist, you're a terrorist. If you go out and interfere with governmental activities, you go out and target public employees and their performance of their duty, not talking about law enforcement officers, but going into places where they have nothing to do with your gripe, but you're going to go after them because they choose their choice of employment, you're going to suffer the consequences. And they did not like, and many did not like, that I did not just tell them to go out and be good boys and not it. No, if you're doing wrong, I'm going to tell you, you're doing it wrong. You're going about it the wrong way. And so all you're doing is going to get yourself thrown in a cage. My job was to keep you out of a cage, or my job was that once you were placed in a cage, that then if you were somehow associated with photography, silent crime as a group of people, I was the guy who was on the phone with law enforcement when you're getting wrapped up saying, hey, that person's a journalist. Here's your contact information. Here's who I am. I'll give you a couple minutes to look it on up, and you can cut them loose. That's like guys like Phillipe Hernandez, Adam Crack, the former California Guardian, and High Desert Community Watch, and then others. There used to be videos where individuals say, hey, call Phillipe, and everybody knew who to call. Right. Everybody knew who to call Phillipe, and then he got accused of being an attorney because some asshole, hey, I got my attorney on the phone. At no point in time did I tell anybody to call me attorney. At no point in time did I call myself an attorney. I, as a citizen, can have an opinion about cases just like anybody else can. And so maybe because of my talent for being talkative or whatever, people tended to believe that I was an attorney. Well, I can't control your beliefs, and at no point in time did I claim I was an attorney because I didn't. Never. What would be the benefit? But anywho, their opinion about me is based upon something someone else said. Many of them don't have any first-person contact with me. They don't know me or know what I've done. All they know is what they're being regurgitated by now: a convicted violent rapist, now a convicted child molester.
Do you associate with any auditors now?
No, zero. No, not at all.
Okay.
No, that's not completely true. I do interact with those that I know that are good people, that I know what their intentions are. We have a good and valid relationship, and I interact with them and help them out with trying to understand how to maneuver and how to behave a little differently to get a different response. As a public administrations professional and knowing how government works outside of even being a career firefighter for a very long time and working with government, and now I working on some other things where I'm working within government and seeing how government operations work and seeing how to bring change without conflict and getting it done and getting things changed and getting things exposed and changing the mindset of those that are currently in positions. Because really and truly, it would be very difficult to believe that everybody within these organizations all share the same thought process. That'd be ignorant to think that. And besides being a wide assortment of different types of characters with one or two things in common, they work for the same employer, they may have the same mindset when it comes to law enforcement or something like that. But each one of these people are totally different individuals. And now we're seeing it more and more with more and more diversity and more allowance of being a diverse society. We're now allowing to see these people say to have an alternative opinion about how policing works in our country. And we are seeing cops getting charged. We are seeing cops being fired. We are seeing action that we never saw before. We now have body cameras. We had never had that before. So I stay active, but I wasn't seeking limelight or intention. I still maintain my Black Coat Media stuff, and on occasion putting up content that comes up, but it was no longer my focus. My focus became Earl David Worden, getting him demonetized, making sure that people knew who he was, until the point that he went to prison. The guy went as far to try to sue me, and that was dismissed in federal court. So of all the people that are out there that have been targeted by him, he made more videos about me as an individual than anybody else. He came after me and my wife more than anybody else. He sued me, my wife, and my wife's business, and then all those things were unsuccessful. He's a failure over and over and over again. It speaks volumes to him. Okay. If anything that he said were true, I would have been found something would have happened. But because I have some influence over the federal court system and Judge Percy Anderson, yeah, right. I have as much influence on the son as I would have on a federal judge. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Judge Percy Anderson told him to kick rocks because he failed to prosecute. Yeah, but as far as misspelling my name, we had to go through a process of dismissal, and the guy failed to prosecute. Much like he went after Joe Salvaggio. That's what the whole situation was. The guy's just an opportunist.
Is there any auditors you dislike or want to talk about? Like for instance, Jack Miller. You contacted me after I spoke to Jack Miller about this. Is there
Jack Miller's lost focus. Jack Miller's made it about his relationship and him and Patrick Robb and who's screwing over and who. Jack Miller said he didn't care, much like dirty cops don't care about what other dirty cops do. He compared and said, I don't care if you diddle cats, diddle dogs, diddle monkeys, diddle fish. I don't care as long as you're filming police. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want to interact with child molesters. I don't want to make activists out of criminals who have an alternative behavior. He's entitled to an opinion who he wants to interact with, but Jack Miller's Jack Miller. Jack Miller's about Jack Miller. Jack Miller, I don't think he films the police anymore. I know about what Jack Miller did to Jesus Padilla, Chewy Padilla.
Which was what?
Mexican Padilla on YouTube. But he stole Mexican Padilla's content and then put his logo, put his watermark on it. They had gone out to film the police, because that's what we were doing. We're not going out to public businesses and harassing public employees. We're actually filming the police because that's where the rubber meets the road. And one night in San Antonio, it was noticed where these individuals were thrown to the ground. Jesus Padilla had valuable footage that Jack then confiscated and put his watermark on. And I started first. One of the first people to publicly go after Earl was Chewy Padilla, Jesus Padilla, Mexican Padilla, because I told him when he came up on the scene, he was very popular. He's a bilingual activist, which makes it beautiful that he can speak to those most greatly oppressed, both in English and in Spanish, especially in Texas. And so, and I hung out with him for about 6 days while we were there for Leon Valley. We went down to South Texas to inspect and to see the former Walmarts that had been converted to kiddie prisons, and went to every kiddie prison that they had in South Texas. And we introduced, and I was showing Chewy how to interact with law enforcement, how to go into police stations, ask for records, and not get arrested. And so, but the influence of others were trying to get him in bad situations out of entertainment. I don't know. I didn't see the messages back and forth, but I always advise them, if you're instructed to leave, leave. If they tell you to call the cops, leave. Don't make yourself an easy target for them. Just leave. You can always, your rights have already been violated. No need for you to go to jail to prove that. And that's one thing I would tell them on anybody. Don't hang out.
I said
don't hang out. No, don't hang out. Don't hang out. You got the content. Leave. If you haven't been charged, leave. If you feel that you're about to get arrested, if you don't give your ID, give up your ID, because going to jail sucks.
Hey,
you don't want to go to jail.
Are there any?
You don't want to have to date these cops for 3 years until they drop your case. And then if you sue them, you're going to be dating them for another 3 years because you're going to depot them and all this other silly nonsense. We don't need to go all that. You don't need to push that. But that's my opinion. Some people want to ride it out. Hey, ride it out. But many people have families at home or do poorly when they're in custody. I don't want that for anybody. It's not necessary.
So which auditors do you love?
Ah, man, who do I enjoy that is doing it right today? I have not watched anybody's new content as of late because I've been focused on Earl and Earl alone.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys I think that do it best are guys like Aaron Leaf, who is from San Diego, and he's out there. Let me get Aaron's stuff for you. You can go look his stuff up.
What's his channel?
I'll get it for you.
Oh. Aaron Leaf.
Aaron Leaf out of San Diego. He's one of the better ones. Let me see.
What do you think of Long Island Audit?
I have not had any contact with him, but what I've seen of his, he puts out good stuff. And so Aaron, his girlfriend, let me see, his Irate Productions. That's Irate, IRATE.
I've seen that guy. He's good.
Yeah, and he unfortunately he puts out great content, absolutely some of the best content. But the thing is, he only has 73,000 subscribers. And it's the weirdest thing. Dana Salmon, Mistaken Bacon.
Yeah.
A lot of guys here in Southern California that are non-controversial, that just go out there. Who else is out there? Onus News. Onus News goes out and does his thing. And, we'll drop his name because we don't want people to know who he is. But Aaron also has another channel called Cop Watch San Diego. And so he has different stuff going on. But this guy puts out content. He's actually San Diego and San Diego County is by far, it's a whole different world down there. They have their own district court, and it's corrupt. It's absolutely corrupt. There's been lawsuits against the San Diego. You see, there's been cases where all you have to do is really look at San Diego County Sheriff and San Diego County Police Department, the level of crime that's been committed by cops between murdering people in custody, raping people in custody, doing all kinds of heinous things, and it doesn't seem to stop. And they have targeted Aaron and targeted his significant others, and he's one of the guys who gets out and gets it done, and without breaking the law, without So that's because if you're in jail, you can't provide content.
Exactly.
You can't do much activism inside of cage. That's another thing I used to say. You can't be an activist in a jail cell.
What do you think of Bay Area transparency?
I mean, honestly, John, I haven't seen your stuff. I'll check them out.
How about
I'm sure that,
have you heard of Susan Bassey?
Yeah, I know Susan.
You like her?
Susan has been victimized by the Santa Clara County court system and Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office. 100%. Absolutely. She's been victimized by the courts, and she's exposing dirty judges. That is a very difficult thing to do. Very incredible. These people are protected. 100%.
Let's put a nice bow tie on this for Christmas and give a final statement. If you have anything you want to plug, I really appreciate you coming on with me, man.
No, I'm bringing back Black Coat Media because my attention is back to being an activist versus an exposer.
Okay.
And so I'm bringing it back. I'll be gathering content, use the body camera footage, first person videos, bringing that whole situation back, and we'll likely do a weekly live stream on my YouTube channel, Phillipe Hemming, and go from there. I have enough subscribers, and also Black Coat Media on Facebook. So those have been kind of stagnant, kind of sitting loose over the last couple of years, waiting for this trial and this case to be over, and moving forward from there, and getting back to getting the people's attention. We had a big uprising of attention post George Floyd, and it's kind of slowed down a little bit, but that's the nature of humans. We kind of lose attention, but meanwhile, the people that have been grinding every single day are guys like Aaron and others that have been out there doing it. And I will always support those. Even Jacob Crawford from We Cop Watch. I don't know if you know Jacob. It wears on people. Even Carlos Miller, it wears on him. I can tell you firsthand after viewing tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, intervening. There was a case out of Florida's Bay Area, the Tampa St. Pete, Clearwater area.
That's right.
Where local police officers chased a carload of girls into a retention pond in a cemetery.
That was Pinellas.
It failed to effect a rescue. Me reviewing that video, putting that video, listening to the video, watching this kid die after being a firefighter and being more than trained to qualified to go rescue them, and knowing what it would take to go rescue them, was deeply disturbed that these people allowed these people to die. And since then, there's a case out of Homestead, Florida, that was covered by Doc McDonough's production, which is True Homestead, which is on Facebook. I don't think he has a presence on YouTube, but that's one of the things I've been working with True Homestead and Doc Justice, working on his matters and his fight with the city of Homestead, Florida, which is a cesspool of corruption from top to bottom. And that guy's his simple act of public records request and has caused him all kinds of problems. And he's had multiple lawsuits. And the judicial system in Florida is unbelievable at the federal level. And he's found some results at the local level. He has a judge that listens to him and then works with him and understands him. And Doc Justice has become quite astute at being a legal professional. He's not a legal professional. He has a PhD in chemistry and some other stuff, but he's not a lawyer. But he has definitely likely filed more documents than attorneys that have graduated law school with his time when filing lawsuits. So those are things been working on behind the scenes. Still do records requests or do research for people on topics. And that's really what my initial role was getting the facts, getting the documents, getting the video, finding out the who's who, figuring out where this video was shot. Today we're in a very different world. Here 7 or 10 years later, when we started this, filming the police type stuff, of where we just get videos and then we have to figure out where they came from and who produced them, and reaching out to the person and getting their story and trying to get that's what I did. I found out who these people were. I got their records. I got them interviewed by journalists. I got their stories out, and that's really what it was. And I used my YouTube channel initially just to host content for Photographers Not Crime, because their YouTube channel was consistently and daily being dinged for all kinds of stuff, whether it be the video being too graphic or whatever. I didn't have any problems until I went after Earl, and they took my YouTube channel down for 18 months. It took me 18 months worth of work of interacting with the people at YouTube in order to get Phillipe Hemming brought back online, because they claimed I shared a video that was a little too violent, which was a young lady being drug out by her hair during Easter celebration in Palm Beach County. Somehow that video was trolled out, and they targeted me because I guess maybe those people believed what they call the trusted flaggers. YouTube used to have a program called the Trusted Flagger program. Apparently, the Trusted Flagger program had been infiltrated by people that were supporting Earl David Worden, or maybe bootleggers. I don't know. I don't know. But somehow, some way, my channel, which was producing content and generating revenue and producing, on a daily, was targeted and shut down. And if I had not started Black Coat Media, I would have been, would not have had an avenue out. And so I just did what I did. But other than that, we're firing it back up. We're getting ready to hit the streets again.
All right, Phillipe. That's it, man. I got to go make a ring now and get ready for work. I really appreciate you, brother.
No problem, brother. Take care.
Stay in touch. You got my phone number now. I'll save your number. And it's really nice of you to come on, man. I appreciate it. So everybody subscribe to Phillipe Hemming and Black Coat Media. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's it. Black Coat Media and Phillipe Hemming. All right,
appreciate you, brother, man. Have a good night.
You too, man. Take care.
Dude, you guys are asking me to ask them questions. Some people talk a lot so fast, and without taking a breath, like you guys are saying, and I just can't get a word in edgewise. I asked him a few questions, and ask him if he scams people. He's going to say no. He already said that he never told anyone he was a lawyer, that they just gave him that moniker. He does talk fast, and he talks without pausing, and he's good at it. I mean, you got things to say. I got you, bro. I tried not to interrupt you too much. There you go. He believes David Worden's both convictions from the past and the future are both completely legitimate. He 100% believes that David Worden did what he did. They're saying now there's he got a 20-year sentence, which pretty much means he's going to be in there till he's dead for the most part, unless he goes on some type of vegan jail diet and lives to be 100. He'll be out there with a walker and a gimbal, Every time I've spoken to David Worden, just like every time I've spoken to Phillipe, they both sound like straight shooters for the most part. You never know, man. You could look at me, and for all you know, I could dress up like a dragon at night, and my pee-pee is the tongue of the dragon or something, and my wife is what's her name from Shrek's girlfriend, and we do cosplay at night, which would be weird. And if you found that out about me, which you won't, because we do it in private, you never know is what I'm saying. I think I'm a good judge of character. This is just a tough case, man. Either way, those are two of the most hated guys. I'm one of the most hated guys on YouTube too, so I know what hate's all about. If David's falsely convicted, that sucks. If he is rightly convicted, he deserves what he got, man. And he probably deserves more than 20 years, and he probably shouldn't have got out the first time. Gary Snow is God. Oh, that's so funny. What else? Hit the thumbs up on your way out. There's 246 of you here. I got to go make a ring. I was printing the label while Phillipe was talking. I had to do something. I had to chew on something, All right. Word. I love you guys, man. Phillipe, thanks again for coming on. Maybe one day we can just get rid of the hate in this movement and stop fighting with each other and, let's just fight for the Bill of Rights. John talked to Chris to see that again. Why do I want to open up that can? They're going to say she scammed them, And he's going to say, no, they didn't. And, you know, it's just delving too deep. As far as David goes, the guy's basically in jail for the rest of his natural life. And it sucks for him if it's not true, but if it is true, you got it rotten there, dude. My apologies. Even though you did some decent work with the camera and the auditing, and you were one of the OGs, so to speak, and the News Now Houston, I believe you were the first News Now person. All that stuff just gets flushed down the toilet because you did or didn't decide to do some nasty things that a grown man shouldn't do. There's plenty of women of age that look underage. If that's what your goal is and you like underage women, find you a little 4'9", fully grown, 18 plus. You know what I mean? Like when I dress as a dragon, theoretically, and my peepee's my wiener's the tongue of the dragon, and I shoot fire, like I straight spit at my Shrek girlfriend. This is what I have to do to be fulfilled in life. So if you like young women, so to speak, there's women out there, like Filipinas, for instance, they'll be 38 years old, they'll look like they're 17. So do your thing, bro. Do it the right way. There's ways around things, you know what I mean? Anyway. Thank you so many people for watching. Please hit the thumbs up, man. There's so many people here, no thumbs up. It helps my channel. Pee-pee tongue. I talked to you on the phone. You represent as an attorney. So this Larry Irwin guy really got something to say. All right, dude, I got to go make a ring. Thanks, everybody. I love you. I appreciate you guys coming on. Closing song. Closing song. I'm gonna chew on plastic. And in the background, I'm doing unethical things. Closing song. You just reminded me of Semisonic, and I used to smoke bongs. I would still if I had one. Closing song. Hey, Fleming. See, man. People bugging out, man. All right. Poor Dirt Farmer, what's up, brother? I still have guilt about not sending you the snake video. Did I ever send you the snake video where you grab the snake with your bare hand? And do you also snatch up dragons? Asking for a friend. My wife and I are both the year of the dragon. So we're both dragons. I don't know who Olsen is. Snake vid, LOL. I'm serious. You remember you picked up the snake in Punta Gorda? All right, everybody. You grab your snake nightly? Do you grab it lightly at nightly? I grab my snake lightly nightly. Enjoy those history lessons, Scrub. I hope you learn a lot from Chile. All right, let me call Rotten Apples because he's been calling me lately and I've been busy as hell. Year of the Monkey. You go, Blue Steel. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. I would ask real questions, dude, but some people just go on and on and on. The Gimbal Walker. There you go. Gimbal Walker. That's a great name for a channel. All right, everybody. Peace. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Love you long time. Bye.